Good afternoon and welcome to Go Beyond. My name is Alyssa Robinson and I am here right now with Reverend Daniel Humbert, and we are here to talk about the Psalms of Lament. And we're going to dig a little bit deeper. On Monday, we were talking about the context behind them, a better understanding of who wrote them, why they wrote them, what was going on. But today I'm going to push Daniel a little bit to talk about his relationship to those Psalms of Lament and times that maybe he's felt the same way that those writers have felt and what those Psalms meant to him at this time. So I'm excited that you're here with us today for Go Beyond, which is simply a time to dig deeper into the message that we heard on Sunday. And we do that in a different way every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12:30. So thank you for joining us, and share this with your friends so that they can be a part of this too. But I will jump into the first question because in our Psalms of Lament this week, we talked about the formula of problem, then plea, then trust. Wait, did I skip one? Trust and praise. Okay, got it. And so some of the Psalms of Lament that we were reading, the problem is that I am doubting God. I am doubting God's presence in my life and that God has a role in what's happening, or why are you allowing this to happen to me? Or where are you? Why have you left? So is God even here anymore? So I wanted to ask you, Daniel, when was there a time that you doubted God?
Yeah, that's a big one, right? I'll give you two quick ones because I won't belabor the first one, and the second one's kind of short. So, my whole calling to ministry, to ordained ministry, was full of doubt. I mean, it took about 3 years from sophomore year in high school to leading up to my freshman year in college to sort of own this um, calling into the ordained ministry. And a lot of it was filled with doubt about me, and also doubt about what God wanted and who God was and where God was. And so there was a lot of doubt there about what God was wanting of me and from me, and how that all works. And I won't bore you with all the detail, but it took a long time. And that's a normal part of callings, are, lots of doubt, lots of questions, all that kind of stuff. I would say more recently, um, the whole deal when COVID started, back in March, and we said, golly, we're going to not go live in the room of the sanctuary anymore. I had all kinds of doubts about whether that was the right thing or not, or whether God was going to be with us as we move through that. Um, it's not often that your pastor's going to tell you that he or she didn't understand what to do, or what God was up to, if you will, in the middle of all that. But I can tell you that was the case. It was just my humanity was at full scale, and I finally learned how to trust God. And there was a real sense of lamenting through that. And if I'm honest, there's still some of that left. But I'm more into the trust and praise now, because I recognize God did bring us in and through that. And we're not out of it, obviously, but God's still working on all that.
Hmm.
Doubt
And
doubt is real.
yeah, yeah. And also, I think that it often comes out of uncertainty of nobody has any answers. There is no playbook for pastors on how to guide your flock through a pandemic.
Right.
And so we were all just guessing and reading up and attending webinars all day, every day to
Yeah,
try
yeah,
and figure out what are we doing here. And so it's almost like we tried to take it in the beginning, we tried to take it into our own hands
right.
and take it away from God.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Came down to finally trust, just like the laments say.
So in Psalm 13, which we were reading on Sunday, it specifically mentions within the problem and the plea part, my enemies are rising up against me. Everyone is turned away from me. I'm the laughing stock. This is a summary. I'm the laughing stock of my community. So I want to ask you, when was there a time that you felt in your ministry that everyone was turned against you?
Yeah. Well, every ordained pastor can tell you that happens at least once and may happen many times. And the most vivid for me goes back roughly 20 years ago when I was serving the church at Argyle. And I literally had both a crisis of faith and a crisis of calling. I felt as though somehow I had not done something well or right. And literally it felt like the whole church was against me. So much so that literally a couple of things happened that have never happened since, and certainly hadn't happened at the time. There was a kind of an inquisition. I was called before the congregation, and I literally had to sort of speak into my own beliefs. And the whole, I say the whole church, everybody who was interested came, and I sat through question after question after question. What do you believe on this? What do you believe on that? What does your faith tell you about this? And it felt like I was ganged up on. And at another occurrence, the district superintendent was called in to basically defend me, and he did a phenomenal job. But at the time, it felt like everyone was against me, and that no one was on my side. The reality is there were a number of people on my side, and it had all to do with what I refer to as both hospitality and radical love, because I had the audacity to say that anybody was welcome in the life of the church. Including gays and lesbians. And this was at a time in 1999 when in a rural setting that was unheard of. And so because I made comments like that, there were people who felt like, golly, maybe I don't know this pastor, maybe I don't understand what he's thinking and promoting. And so it very much felt like there was an attack on me. And luckily, I sort of moved through that, and God helped me and gave me strength and encouraged me, and certainly began to encourage others to speak their truth and their faithfulness as well. But it was a hard time. I literally wondered if I should remain a pastor, and I literally wondered if, golly, if this whole faith thing, because unfortunately, part of what we come to experience in church is followers of Jesus are people just like everybody else. And sometimes our humanness comes straight out, and man, it's nasty and ugly and vindictive and mean-spirited and all of that stuff. And I experienced all of that. I got hate mail. I got certainly hate email. I got nasty phone calls. I got people telling me literally to my face that I was not a Christian. And it was pretty amazing. Those were not fun times.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw a curveball at you based on that. If you were to write a psalm based on that experience, following the formula, what would be the problem, the plea, the trust, and the praise?
Oh my, wow. Well, so the problem would be, golly, God, why is this happening to me? Why would you call me into this and then have this happen to me, right? That's the problem. The plea would be, holy crud, God, help me out. I need support. I need encouragement. I need to know your strength is with me. The trust, I think, would simply be, okay, God, I've shared with you the issues. Now I'm just going to lay it in your hands, and I'm going to trust that this is true. And ultimately, God, I'm going to praise you for whatever happens. But I can say all that 20 years hence. I'm not 100% sure I could say that in the moment. And Kay can vouch for the fact, there were many a night I would come home and just plead for either, comfort, support, or encouragement, because it felt as though I'd done everything wrong, and no one would want to follow me as a leader, spiritual leader in particular. And so I think really that's ultimately sort of the response of what if I were to write a psalm, what would that look like? And I think even the psalms that David and others wrote, I believe they wrote them in hindsight. I don't believe they were writing them in the moment. It may be true that they were, but my gut tells me they were writing them in response to some circumstance they went through, and therefore that's how they went, so rapidly from problem and plea to trust and praise, because it didn't happen overnight. I guarantee you, it happened.
Well, and that's what I was wondering about. I was kind of thinking, just because I enjoy writing, that's the way that I get my feelings out. And I keep a little journal sometimes, especially when I'm going through something really rough. And if I were to describe my journal as a psalm, I will write the problem and plea over and over and over again for months in different ways. And it could be, it's not until a year later that I come out and write the piece about the trust and praise, because I don't see it until that point. And so I'm wondering if maybe in those Psalms, is it at all possible that it's just so cohesive from beginning to end? We're like, oh, beautiful poetry. But if we were to read it as a journal and an
Yes.
experience, could it be that they were written at different pieces of that journey?
I think that's very possible. And again, I think it's even very probable that most of them were written sort of in hindsight, in reflection of an experience that they'd gone through. I do think it's possible the way you've described, where it was sort of piecemeal. I'm in the heat of it, the thick of it. Here's the problem, the plea. And then later they come back. I think almost any poetry would be that way. And certainly a lament would be that way even today. I mean, you talk to any author of any style, whether poetry or novels or anything, most of them would tell you that it has to be free flowing, and it has to be sort of as you are motivated and inspired. And I think if they are human, as we can only assume they are, the trust and the praise part was hard, particularly in the moment, but in reflection, you can get there. Yeah.
So, as we are trying to connect the Psalms to music because they were meant to be sung, focusing on lament, what is a modern song that really encompasses that feeling of the Psalms of Lament for you?
Yeah. Well, you're asking a guy who doesn't listen to music much, and so I'm not. I kind of struggled with, golly, what would be good, and so of course, as a pastor, the first thing that comes to my mind are hymns, right? And so the first hymn that came to my mind was "It Is Well With My Soul." And without belaboring the concept, that song is about a huge tragedy where a man loses, all of his family, at least all of his kids, to a tragic accident. And then he writes this song that ultimately says, even though, golly, that was traumatic and horrible, and I can't even fathom, it is well with my soul. And so that's a real sense of a lament. I think in terms of modern songs, I'll mention two. One is kind of old, it's about 30 years plus old, and it's U2, Sunday Bloody Sunday. Sunday Bloody Sunday is a powerful song of lament that owns the human condition, and how we kind of, I need to clean my language before I say it, when we kind of screwed up the church, and then kind of accept the fact that somehow God can still be in the midst of all that crud. And that it's a beautiful song. I'm sure you know it. Another one that is not, U2 is, Bono is, Christian based. One that's not really Christian based that I find very powerful, and I've only heard it a few times, but it's kind of the theme song from the modern version of A Star Is Born with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. It's called Shallow. And that it's kind of the theme song for that movie. And it's a very powerful song of lament that both commiserates the trouble of their relationship, but also celebrates the sort of power of hope. And that's really what a lament does. And I think that's the beauty of the laments, is that they don't just waller in the misery. They also celebrate that there can be something on the other side, that we can get through that. And I think that's what we sometimes forget about laments, is that there's actually some hopefulness. That trust and praise component is the hope through the stuff. So.
Well, I appreciate y'all spending some time with us today to talk a little bit more about the Psalms of Lament. And we are going to have another special performance from Karen on Friday. What we're doing a little bit special and different on Fridays throughout this worship series for Go Beyond is we are having Karen share a psalm based on the genre, I guess you could say, of psalm that we are covering that week, where she's going to give us a little extra that we don't get to experience on Sunday. So I hope that you'll tune in to hear from Karen on Friday at 12:30, and we will see you then.
You would much rather hear from Karen than me sing that song. That would be
We
great.
might have Karen and Daniel do a duet. I don't know. Maybe if you comment and request it, it'll happen.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.